My sustained investigation focuses on how different philosophies have shaped the world over time. In each of my pieces, I show how the past and present are colliding in different ways. Like in this one, she is looking towards the past in all these different things. And in this one, it's looking at the different clothing of the past. I planned my idea by reading a lot of philosophy books, and I found that I really enjoyed learning about how different ideologies shaped how we viewed the world as a whole. I researched a lot of history to develop my topic. For symbolic images, for the Renaissance, I have a triangle here. I have steps leading into like the chaos of the world because people are figuring out how the world really works. We've got clothing of the time over here, and we've got all the different inventions of this time period. Moving on over here, we've got this is Hellenism, which is ancient Greeks and Romans. There's a very large emphasis on living for pleasure. And so we have a lot of, we have a chariot, we have some helmets, we've got bells, and we've got some staffs, and because people still were focused on the old ways while also were learning how to, they were basically just living for pleasure all the time, and they were trying to reach somewhere higher, but it wasn't really where they thought it was. This one over here is Romanticism. The colors in this piece and the different inkwells and different clothing symbolize how at this time period people were moving away from the rigidness of this scientific revolution, and we're focusing on a new way of thinking. For materials, I used printed photographs, I used glue dots, paper dots, vellum, fine liner marker, Sharpie, more Sharpie. Lots of alcohol markers. I used webbing and acrylic paint. Through my sustained investigation, I learned a lot more about philosophy and how it shaped how we are as a people today. I've introduced innovation into my art making through my use of cutouts and webbing to show and symbolize how people's thoughts changed over time and how there was chaos but also order, and how the chaos impacted the different ideas of the time while they were also trying to focus on moving to the next thing. I would like my viewers to see my work as a whole. The pieces can stand alone, but as a whole they show a bigger story. They show our progression over time, and I would like my work to be viewed as a timeline of human advancement. We worked on a lot of deadlines, and I learned how to meet deadlines very well. Compared to other academic classes, this one has a lot more leeway on what you can choose to do, but it was probably equally, if not harder, because of all the deadlines and how much effort and work goes into this.
Okay, so my SI focuses on the concept of slowly losing touch with reality. I feel like I can speak for most people my age when I say that we tend to try and escape reality in ways such as sleeping our problems away or letting fake scenarios or false realities consume our minds to distract ourselves from the fact that reality can be hard sometimes. But if we let those, fake scenarios or false realities consume our minds, we lose sight of what's real, and that can be a bad thing. But basically, my work revolves around me no longer being able to differentiate between imagination and reality, and I eventually lose myself to the fantasy world of my own creation. So when I came up with the idea of losing touch with reality, I was struggling to figure out how can I make my environment really show what I'm trying to portray. And online, I saw these images. They're called liminal spaces, and they're these odd, illogical environments. And I was like, okay, so I guess I can try to manipulate my environment to show that, it's strange, it's not right, it's outlandish. And yeah. I would say that, like the distorted houses or just odd objects really symbolize the dreamlike aspect of my SI. Like nothing is to scale. Like here, the telephone is like abnormally large, but here she's the one who's abnormally large. And I also messed with like dramatic perspectives. Like here, the giraffe, it's like poking out at you. And I thought that was really cool. I guess I would say psychology. I really researched about how we all collectively feel when we look at those, strange images. And it's like this uncanny like feeling we get. It's like you know something's not right, clearly. And I thought that really went well with my SI. All of my pieces are watercolor. I also do a lot of weighted lines, so I use microns as well. But as for my unique process, which is this like cool bubble effect, I use acrylic paint and dish soap. What I do is I mix those two together and pour some water in a cup. And when I mix them together, I put a straw in and I blow into it, and it makes all the bubbles like kind of come to the top. And I scoop those bubbles and I put them on the paper. And because of the acrylic paint, all the bubbles have a tint to it, so you can see like each individual outline, and I thought that was really cool. And what I learned is how to really expand my horizons, you know, with my SI being like really strange and messy. I would say that, you know, my SI is kind of out of my comfort zone. I'm used to my projects being all pretty and perfect and, you know, normal. But this is, you know, it's supposed to be odd. And if my pieces are supposed to be odd, they're not going to be pretty and perfect. And, you know, I was struggling to find weird elements to add into my piece that are like really weird. And Miss Briscoe, you know, she noticed this. And she's like, okay, we're going to fix this right now. So she went in the other room, she got a dictionary, she brought it in, and she said, okay, you're going to flip to a random page, and whatever object that you see first, you have to somehow incorporate that into your piece. And at first that kind of scared me a little bit because I was like, okay, because this could be anything. Like, is this gonna work? Is it not gonna work? But I did it anyway. And the first thing I saw was a periscope, like the one like attached to a submarine. And, you know, I realized I would have never ever thought to put that in my piece if she hadn't forced me to do that. So that really helped me. I really want my viewers to question the environments they see, like, okay, what is happening? And I also want them to see that, you know, things are getting weirder and weirder, but not necessarily in a good way. Because you can see, like, she's not really happy in any of these pieces. She's kind of like weary or just kind of sometimes confused with her environment. So I really want them to see that. And also, I just want them to hopefully think it looks cool. AP Art to me is a completely different world from other academic classes. You know, you use your mind in a different way, and it's also graded in a different way. For us, you know, the equivalent of a test day in a normal class is an art critique, which is basically when we bring in our finished project along with our sketchbooks, and, you know, we present to the class. And everyone kind of shares critiques with each other, you know, like what's good, what's, you know, what needs to be fixed. And Miss Briscoe, she grades based off of those critiques. Like, you know, you could have like a solid finished piece, but, you know, she's looking for if you really paid attention to your critiques. Did you try to improve? Did you try to at least attempt to fix your mistakes from last time? And I thought that was a good takeaway, but also I would say, you know, time management skills is definitely something I learned from this class. You know, because, you know, all those tiny deadlines, you know, they don't seem like big deadlines at first, but, you know, they all, you know, kind of catch up to you pretty quickly if you just procrastinate, which is something that I struggle with, but, you know, I can really use that in the real world.
Topic. So my sustained investigation is all about communication through different time periods and how communication can fail or be successful. So I had a different idea at the beginning, and I knew I wanted to do like these different kinds of paper and stuff, but what I had planned was very constricting, if that makes sense. I wanted something where I could be really creative with it, so I went with a more basic idea, and then I could build on top of it. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about this piece because this one has like a lot of symbolism in it. This piece is about dead languages, which is basically like languages that aren't used anymore. Nobody knows like how to speak them, nobody understands it. So Big Chief paper is paper that I personally used when I personally used when I was younger to learn how to write. So that's why that's in the background. and I wanted these hands to kind of be like giving him like their words and him being like confused. This string that's in all of my pieces is like the string that connects us through like our language, our communication. And then I have these like little swatches down here, and I have them on this one too. And that's kind of to show my process, like as an artist, to the viewer. Same thing with like these little bulletin clips. In the backgrounds of all of my projects, it's watered down acrylic, which kind of acts like watercolor. And then my main medium is charcoal. That's like my faces, my hands. And then I used colored pencil on the string and the swatches. I had to do a lot of research because a lot of times I was making art about things that I didn't necessarily understand, like the telegraph, that's what this one's about. So I had to really dive deep into like the time period and why it was used, what things could I slide in there to make it like more symbolic. So I do this like weird foldy thing, y'all can probably see, and I don't see that a lot. That's another thing that I use to show like my process. Like, I don't know, communication is messy, you know? So I just kind of wanted to keep like my process and my messiness in there. I want them to see it and understand it, like, oh, this is about communication, but I also want them to take away like me as an artist and see like my style, my mind in it, if that makes sense. Like, it's not just about communication, it's also about like my feelings about communication. So this class is probably the hardest class I've taken in 4 years. Not necessarily because it was like the material was like hard, it was more like the deadlines, and I have to be on my A game at all times. I have to work until the bell. I work at home all the time because I want my AP projects to be the best for my portfolio so I can get into art college.
My SI focuses on the saying practice makes progress. It goes along with practice makes perfect, but I wanted it to go along with the theme of mental health, and practicing different like coping mechanisms leads to progression in your mental health. So I thought of it in the shower. I was just like thinking about what I should do for the topic, and it just came to my head, and I thought like it sounded cool. For symbolic images, I used envelopes to symbolize like inner things, inner emotions and stuff. So for like some of my projects, I put notes that I'd written or like past projects that I had done, and like I ripped it apart and stuff. I honestly didn't do much research. I just kind of went with what I wanted to do, and for anything that I needed help on, I would ask other people how they felt. For materials, I used acrylic paint, envelopes, paper scraps, and a bunch of other things, but yeah. I learned more about myself and more about how others think about things. For innovation, the envelopes are pretty innovative, I'd say. I didn't want it to be like just straight flat paintings, and so I wanted to add something more to it. I want them to honestly relate to it, and if not, they can just see a pretty picture. It doesn't really matter too much to me. I just wanted it to be something meaningful to me. I'd say AP Art is probably one of my hardest classes yet. It takes a lot of learning not to procrastinate and learning like when to do things. And so I think I could use that when I'm older, is just learn to time manage.
My sustained investigation topic is the alienation and otherness faced by neurodivergent people as a result of being kind of excluded or othered by society. And well, I have autism, and all of my art pieces in this series are about different things that I face with having autism. I had a couple of different ideas at first that weren't related to neurodivergency in any way, but I didn't really care about any of them, and so I knew that I had to pick a topic that I like really felt passionate about. And I settled with this because it's a huge thing in my life. I mean, obviously I can't get rid of it, or I can't really fix it in any kind of way, and this is a topic that really affects me, and so that's why I picked it. Each project has a different kind of bird somewhere on it. Like blue jays, they're kind of aggressive, and I've kind of hated a little bit by birders because of their aggressive tendencies. And this piece is about loneliness, so that's part of the symbolism in it. And also burning. I like burn words into my art pieces because it's like a symbolism of well, I mean, once you burn something, you can't go back, so it's like a symbolism of something that's being changed in such a fundamental way. I definitely researched different aspects of autism, different like levels of autism, and the struggles and things that come with that, but also different kinds of neurodivergency, like BPD and other things like that. And also birds. I knew a lot about birds already, which is why I picked them for the topic of things, but I had to do like some research to figure out some things I didn't know about certain bird species in order to better understand them. I used like watercolor paper and watercolors, and I painted large portions, and then I went in with Copic markers to add smaller details and shading. And I used a lot of like pen work in smaller parts of my art. And I learned, again, about different neurodivergency struggles. And also I got better with proportions and composition of my work, which is something that I'm very happy to have gotten better at, because I wasn't awesome at it before. Probably the burning, because that's like the most unique or interesting thing about my art, I guess, because I take like a soldering iron that you would use to work with like small pieces of metal, and I take it and I burn words into the actual paper itself, or different shapes and things. And that's a representation of the fact that, yeah, I mean, my autism is permanent and it can't really go away. And it like changes me as a person. Personally, I don't really mind how anyone sees my work, but to me, my work is definitely a very personal thing, and it's a very I mean, there are a lot of neurodivergent people who are unaware that they're neurodivergent, or people with autism who haven't been diagnosed, or ADHD, or other similar things. And I would hope that my artwork could be a way of being seen, because a lot of neurodivergent people don't feel like they're seen, and I would like to be a kind of a comfort, I guess, in knowing that you're not alone. This is harder than other academic classes. The deadlines are more consistent, and you have to be very consistent with your upkeep of your work, and you have to make sure that you are done by deadlines. And sometimes it can be difficult because drawing isn't a thing that everybody wants to do every day, and some days you feel like making art and some days you don't. But you have to make sure that despite that, you persevere and you keep pushing and keep going, and remember all the deadlines and everything for like art competitions and art due dates and sketchbooks and all kinds of things. I would say that this class has definitely given me a better work ethic. It made me more confident in my abilities as an artist, and generally more confident as a person.